Here to unpack the August producer price inflation. In fact, we're talking about golf. We're talking about the launch of Forbes Africa last night. But we're shifting gear very, very quickly. We're talking monetary stuff here. We're talking credit. We're talking M3 money supply numbers. And with us to do that is Lumkile Mondi, Chief Economist at the Industrial Development Corporation. I'm glad you enjoyed the golf. I'm sure you'd have enjoyed the launch last night of Forbes Africa, but I'm going to make sure that you get a copy and you go through it and you tell us what you think. But let's begin by looking at the broad picture that has been painted by the numbers that we've seen coming up this morning. If we look at the credit numbers, they suggest that corporates are beginning to spend again, but the household sector remains slightly under pressure. What did you make of those numbers?
Well, the reality of the household is well known that we live beyond our means. We're highly indebted. We're trying to cut down our debt and make sure that we've got space of discretionary income that we can use or at least have ability to go and borrow more. At the moment, the household sector is completely stressed. And it's going to be quite a while before we go back to the beautiful double-digit numbers of consumption.
When is that while? When is that while?
That will happen probably, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years.
Because, it will take a long time.
Yeah, because the disposable income to the debt to disposable income at the moment is sitting around 73%, which is very, very high. So until we fix that problem, forget it. With the consumer, with the global uncertainty, with the markets being so volatile, I think it's tough times.
Yeah, but there was a silver lining in those numbers. We saw the corporates appearing to be spending again, and that has been a concern if we look back previously to the numbers that we've seen coming through, suggesting that perhaps corporates are no longer just sitting on that on those cash piles that they have, but they're beginning also to double into the markets to spend a little bit more.
Of course, a few of the subsectors, but broadly, we're not seeing that massive investment by corporates because of the uncertainty that we see around us and globally. And secondly, that with the unknowns being heavily weighed against corporate in terms of expansion, it's very, very difficult for boards to make decisions around investment. If you look in the mining sector, for example, we're still having prices very, very high, but there's so much uncertainty in South Africa around nationalization, around the capability of taking the stuff to the ports because of logistic challenges. So we could be doing far better, but at least we can be thankful that at least some companies are spending.
Yeah, let's shift focus now to the producer price inflation numbers that came through, and that number coming in year on year 9.6% versus 8.9%. Now the market had been expecting an increase, an acceleration to 9% year on year. What was your focus? Were you surprised by the strength that we saw coming through?
We're not surprised. We know that labor costs have increased quite drastically. Secondly, some prices came through around those at a local level from municipalities, pushing a price of energy, for example, very, very high. So the fact that PPI is now really leading, showing us that the inflation going forward is going to be above, I'm talking about consumer now price inflation, it will be above the target. And therefore, it means that the Reserve Bank is going to start having a challenge, whether to pursue a growth strategy saying we can tolerate a high inflation above the target and therefore no interest rate hike, or do something to stem the inflation, because a high inflation is not good for the poor, because the prices of food particularly start going up, and if they go up, people get pushed back to poverty, and it's a challenge for this country where we know we've got very high levels of poverty.
Absolutely. Someone should be talking to COSATU, because they've been talking about weakening the rand and all that, and yes, now we do have that weakening rand. And does it scare you that we've got now this weakening rand and we've got producer price inflation picking up speed at the same time?
Well, the rand, I mean, I was one of the few, or at least or many, who were surprised why the rand was so resilient at the levels where it was, because this country's got a twin deficit. We're running a trade deficit as well as a budget deficit, but also with the political climate not being so conducive for certain sectors, particularly the mining sector. Therefore, I had expected a long time ago the rand to weaken, but now at last it's weakening. It's not weakening because of anything. It's now trying to find its true value, because supposed to be weaker, supposed to be around 850. It's sitting just below 8 rand at the moment. But however, for exporters, it's not opportune, because where is the market? The
There's
market
no
is good for
market.
commodities, but for manufactured goods, which go mainly to Europe, it's a bad timing because we know that the consumer, they're stressed, the people have lost jobs, and therefore the absorption rate of our export is very, very low in those markets.
Yeah, so let's hope that then what this does is that it puts to bed all this discussion around weakening the rand and having a weaker rand as the panacea to all the economic problems that's being faced by South Africa's manufacturing sector. But let's take a step back and combine all the figures that we have seen today. The producer price inflation, the credit numbers that we have seen. We know that consumer inflation itself was flat at 5.3%. When you look at all those numbers in totality, do you see the Reserve Bank staying its hand, or the Reserve Bank thinking, hello, growth is under threat, let's do something here after seeing this?
Well, you know, a lot of the levers around growth are unnecessarily on the Reserve Bank hands. Those rest with the government in terms of policy environment. Therefore, expecting them to move much more rapidly in terms of making sure that Transnet spend the money supposed to spend, and by doing that, to unlock some of the growth potential. But lastly, that those construction companies that haven't been paid for jobs done under the World Cup start receiving their money, so that the spend on capital investment does take place, which will then create the growth that we require.
Right.
The growth can not only come from the Reserve Bank. We need to make sure that all players play their role, so the Reserve Bank can focus on the monetary policy, not on other issues which are beyond its influence.
Interestingly, you speak of policy, and the minister is quoted in the newspapers today, and after speaking yesterday, he says, and I'm quoting his words here, we are scratching our heads about what to do next in terms of trying to find a solution for the rand. So perhaps...
Why would we worry about the rand? Why worry about the rand? Worry about the cost, the unit cost in this country. Make sure that electricity is accessible and it's not the price where it is. Secondly, make sure that the price of moving goods from point A to point B is competitive. And lastly, talk to partners at COSATU that they need to be a party towards the resolution and absorption of employment. And therefore, they must make sure that in the demands for wages, they think more about job creation than high wages for the employed workers.
I'm going to suggest that you must join the minister in scratching his head and maybe find a solution to some of the problems bedeviling the economy and trying to find trade partners other than Europe, which is suffering at the moment. Lumkile Mondi, Chief Economist at the IDC, thanks very much indeed for joining us.